In a recent survey, 40% of people said that their level of anxiety this year was higher than it was last year. Anxiety is clearly a problem. And yet one of the other things is that we have a desire to reach out and help a person suffering from anxiety, but at times we just don't know what to say. In this video, I want to explore what not to say to a person who has anxiety. When it comes to helping someone who is feeling anxious, there definitely are things that you should never say to them because they're just not helpful, and at their worst, they really can increase the level of anxiety. Today, we're going to explore 7 things that you should never say to someone who's feeling anxious. Number 1 is calm down. You know, calm down really never works. Calm down never works when you're angry, and certainly calm down never works when you're feeling anxious as well. In fact, the opposite can happen. Have you ever been anxious and someone says, calm down? I know I have been, and my desire in that moment is to punch the person in the face or to scream at them. How would you know? So, calm down is never an appropriate response, because you see, what you're dealing with is a person who is triggered, a person who genuinely believes that they are threatened, who genuinely believes that something is terribly wrong, who genuinely believes that either the fear is something to be concerned about. So instead of calm down, one of the things I think that can be very useful is just to adopt a calm demeanor. And instead of calming down by your words, just let your presence be a calm presence. The second thing you should never say to a person who's feeling anxious is, it's not a big deal. Oh, it is a big deal for them. You see, at times, whenever we have the mindset of an anxious person, we begin to understand that what they're going through, what they're experiencing in this moment is very real for them. It is a big deal. In fact, their body has reacted physiologically to a fear that they're encountering. They are in a fight or flight state. And so to say to them it's not a big deal when exactly everything they are feeling makes it a big deal are words that will just add hurt or even add to their anxiety. The third thing you should never say is, why are you so anxious? First of all, it totally lacks empathy. You see, empathy is this ability to walk in the shoes of another person. And so when you say to someone, why are you so anxious? It's really dismissing what the person is feeling when, in other words, what we should be trying to do is to understand. You know, whenever we have a powerful emotion, one of the things that happens is that we enter a phase which is called the refractory phase. And the refractory phase is an interesting moment of the life of an emotion, because what happens at that phase is that the only data that we are willing to accept is data that backs up the feeling that we're experiencing. And so when a person is feeling anxious, one of the things that we commonly find is that they're not willing to interpret outside data that is contrary to how they're feeling. And so when you say something like, why are you so anxious, and your failure to understand them, it's totally dismissed and ignored and really not helpful. Number 4 is a classic I'm afraid my father used quite a few times with my mother, who was a worrying woman. She used to have anxiety about many things. And one of my father's favorite responses to her was, stop worrying, it's only in your head. Now, that went down like a lead balloon. It was not appreciated. And we still say that to people, stop worrying, or it's only in your head, it's not real. And of course, if there's one thing we understand, for the person who's feeling anxious, it is real. For the person who's feeling anxious, it's not only in their head, but it's in their whole body, because their body has reacted to this fear and anxiety that they are experiencing. So don't say, stop worrying, it's only in your head, because that's not going to help them stop it. In fact, it's only going to add to their frustration and their level of anxiety. Number 5 is just get over it. Oh, can you imagine feeling fearful or anxious and someone coming up with the bright phrase, just get over it. It's as if anxiety was a button that you just pressed on or off. It's truly an unhelpful comment, and in many ways it just adds to the level of frustration and aggravation. For someone who's feeling anxious, getting over it is actually a process. It's not just a button that they can press. And so when you say words like just get over it, it really diminishes the feeling that they're experiencing. It diminishes the anxiety that's become part of their life, and just is not helpful. Before we move to the final two things that you should never say, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel if you have not done so. When you're there, also press the bell because that will notify you when I have another video. I tend to produce new videos weekly on different areas of emotional intelligence. Why is emotional intelligence important? Because it has been shown that people with higher emotional intelligence tend to be happier in life, are more successful in their relationships, and are more successful in their jobs. And hey, let's face it, who doesn't want some of that? Number 6 are the words just breathe. Now, this is a difficult one because breathing certainly is a helpful thing for the person. But sometimes it's said with a dismissive tone, like, just breathe. And that's what I'm trying to get at. Throwaway comments like that are not helpful. In fact, if you want to be helpful to the person, what you can do is to sit beside them and to model with them some breathing techniques that might be helpful. So you could just sit beside them perhaps and use the box method. The box method is a rhythmic breathing that helps a person move away from some of the shallow breathing that they have. And just like a box, it's a certain time frame repeated 4 times. So breathe in for 3 seconds, hold it for 3 seconds, out for 3 seconds, and then breathe in. So that can be something that's really helpful. So instead of just, saying just breathe, sit beside them and say, why don't you copy my breath? I think you might find it helpful. And finally, it's the famous over-identification and taking over of the conversation. So when a person talks about their anxiety, you reply, oh, I know what you mean. In fact, I felt such and such. And then you go into a whole explanation of how your anxiety is so much more than their anxiety. It's the old thing. You talk about something that's gone wrong, and then you try and up that person with something that's even more terrible. When a person is feeling anxiety, the one thing that they want to feel is acknowledged and understood. The one thing they want to feel is that you're present with them. And so by taking over the conversation and sharing about your own anxieties and about how your own anxieties are worse than their anxieties, it's really not helpful, and you should avoid it. So there you have 7 different areas to explore and 7 things that you should never say to a person who is anxious. So the question then comes, if this is what I shouldn't say, what should I say? And I have a video exactly for that. I invite you to watch the next video, which explores what should you say to someone who has anxiety.